six, six, seven.
Good morning, Southern Middle Tennessee. My name is Del Kennedy. I am dude number three. I am broadcasting to you from Florida this morning. Having a little vacation. I got here yesterday after uh, delayed flights, canceled flights, weather delayed flights, you name it. So it turned into the proverbial 3-hour cruise, but I'm here. I am dude number 3. Welcome into our last show of the week for 3 Dudes with a View tomorrow morning inside Middle Tennessee with Jim York. And we will be back with you on Monday. Dude number 2, Ron Hart, native son, favorite son of Columbia, 77 graduate, Columbia Central High School. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Ron. Dude number 1, Mr. Jim York. Good morning.
Good morning, Delk. You enjoying that sunshine down there?
Well, actually, Mr. York, the weather's about the same here as it is there. I think it's both places supposed to be upper 70s and sunshine today, but I am on the ocean, and
yeah, you can't do no skinny dipping, huh?
no, but I'm a little past that anyway. I'm wanting some nice seafood and ocean.
I see you skinny dipping. They probably closed the beach down, Delk.
I suspect they would. I suspect they would. All right. Son of Ron Hart, Jeff Hart, good morning.
Hello.
And regular special guest, dude. Welcome in, Debbie Matthews. Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. Glad to be here.
All right. This just in. After revelations about the Southern Poverty Law Center, the KKK is forced to buy their robes from Temu, and Democrats are disappointed because there's not as much racism in America as they have claimed. Yeah.
Yeah, when supply doesn't meet demand, you gotta increase demand.
I think it's important here for everybody who is on the right side of things, who has pointed this out for a while, to be measured in how you respond to this, because this is not a vindication of every other claim or anything else. And there's nothing more that disintegrates the credibility of a claim than putting it to something it isn't. What we know, what we don't know, it's all unfolding. And it's a paperwork dispute, obviously, but it's way more than that in the real world. And so it's the wire fraud, it's the pushing. But the real thing that people are focusing on is that it was paid for. Right now, it's going to false flags. They were paying to keep them running, or it was part of a business model to keep hate groups going so they still had a job. We know they sent the money and they, agreed to that. They're obviously going to say we were paying informants to look at that. But the way it's come out and the way the indictment actually looks, they have a lot more than that and a lot more communication, but we don't know what it is yet. So be measured in what we take from it as it goes on.
I don't know if we should be measured, though, Jeb. I mean, at what point? Because this is going to go out of the news cycle and everybody's going to forget it. But this was Charlottesville that they paid the Rent-A-Thugs or Rent-A-Mob that we've been talking about for years. Charlottesville was
a singular member probably, of their upper leadership was absolutely paid. Yes.
This is why we need to be. I don't think that we need to be.
The reason we're measured.
No,
the reason
the FBI does it every day. The FBI does it every day.
No, they don't pay you to commit a crime, though. It's different.
The reason that it's incredibly
nobody committed a crime.
The reason that's so incredibly important.
Why do you have an indictment then, Mr. York?
The reason that it's so incredibly important to be measured is because this is very serious. And if the things are true, you don't want anything to undercut the truth of it by making claims that are elsewhere. And that way it can be easily dismissed and kicked out of the news because the version of it is built on hypotheticals that are easily narratively broken down by the people who wish them not to be true.
Okay. Well, this is where I have a problem.
Debbie, to the question that Mr. York poses, to take money for a charitable organization, to take money for one purpose and then spend it on another, that's wire fraud, Mr. York. That's mail fraud.
Well, it's not just that, Dale. They started putting people on this extremist list, and it caused people to get shot. They put Turning Point USA and the high school chapters on the list of being extremist groups, and then Charlie gets shot. You can almost measure everything.
You can't say that. You can't correlate that, Debbie. You can't correlate that.
I think there was 4 days between.
All right, folks, one at a time, one person at a time.
Perfect example of what I'm talking about. Perfect example of what I'm talking about. I understand that the core of what you're talking about is true. The Catholic mothers being on a terrorist watch list and being part of a Virginia FBI memo and all that is rooted in Southern. All of those are important things to address. But jumping to they got Charlie Kirk shot, it weakens the truth of the argument, and that's why I'm saying be measured.
It was a 4-day difference, Jeb. 4 days. 4 days.
Well,
And
all right.
There's
Debbie, yes, Charlie Cook was put on the Southern Poverty Law Center. No, he should not have been. He never advocated racism, and it's
What?
that's
Bill, where you coming from?
He did
Never-
not.
what did he say?
Miss York, instead of reading about him in those left-wing sites you go
That's
to.
why. See right there, because York thinks York thinks he's a racist is how they were effective.
You listen to his speeches. What else could you
Name one
determine?
thing he
Will
said
you
that
tell me
racist.
what it was, though?
Speech where he
What was it?
advocated against
No, I
racial
don't
racism.
remember what it was, but I know
Don't remember what it was. Oh,
in
my
the
goodness.
news media
One
there was a lot of
time.
things
One
about it.
I do remember Joe Biden calling 60% of the country white supremacists.
Well, you remember
was
that.
the biggest problem in the country based off of this.
Miss
Well,
York,
even
I want
60%,
you to
huh?
play me any video of Charlie.
I'm
Kirk
not
making
gonna go
racist
back and
comments.
You
pull
know
up that
what,
racist.
I'm
I'm not gonna go back and pull up that racist information.
Hold on.
You're not gonna-
We've proven on here he doesn't like facts. Don't do that.
You're not going to go
Don't make him
back.
put up facts.
This
Go
is
to
this
break,
is this
Drake.
is this is the issue.
We're going to have Drake cut the mics if you can't take turns.
Okay, here's the issue. You're not going to go back when pressed a little bit and even be a bit self-reflective. However, you are more than willing to continue forward with that idea and not self-correcting or even validating what you believe yourself. Like if you truly believe that and someone asks you, you should be like, yeah, obviously I'll find this. This is why I think that. But if you can't even tell anybody when pressed on it why you believe it, you don't believe it. You were told it, and now you're scrambling, and it's
And everything
far
else
too
you say
prevalent.
is questionable then.
But you carry forward with that, and that affects so many other things that you believe because you're not willing to self-reflect on what it is that you're even talking
And
about.
Jeb Broadley
Yeah, so-
speaking, that's what the Southern Poverty Law Center and the Democrat surrogates like that like to do. They like to start a narrative. They repeat the narrative. They start the narrative. They repeat the narrative. Like your column, like the election interference was debunked. It's been debunked, then unproven. You're a conspiracy theorist. You're an election denier. They start the narratives, and they know how to do it. The Rules for Radicals, Saul Lewinsky, whatever his name is, who wrote that book. That's how you do it, and it works in America. And Southern Poverty Law Center, which had their donations doubled after this, including George Clooney and people like that, giving them money. Tim Cook at Apple gave them money. I mean, that was a great marketing scheme. They paid for there wasn't enough racism in America. I don't know a white supremacist. I don't know a Ku Klux Klan member. I don't know wherever this group y'all talk about all the time. I know a lot of
You
white
don't know
people.
anybody? You don't know any racist?
No.
All right.
Do you?
Drake, can you hear
That's
me?
a
It's
stretch,
time to
Ron.
take a break.
That's
Yeah, it's time to take a
stretch.
break, y'all. Let's
No.
take a break.
By your
Well,
definition,
that's a
every white
stretch.
by your definition, every white person is a racist.
There you go to break.
Is it time for a break?
All right. Good morning. 3 Dudes with a View. My name is Del Kennedy. I am dude number 3. Drake Pugh is our engineer this morning. And Drake, I can't see my clock with Zoom on, so I'm counting on you to tell me when to, or give me a signal.
Yes,
to
sir.
Go to break, when to end the show. And it looks like you've been trying to give me some kind of signal, and I don't understand it.
That's just me pointing at you to talk. That's all.
Okay, all right, good deal. All right, dude number 2, Ron Hard, native son, favorite son of Columbia. Good morning, Ron.
Morning.
Good morning. Dude number 1, Mr. Jim York. Good morning.
Good morning, Dale. Good morning, everybody.
All right, regular special guest dude, Debbie Matthews. Good morning.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning, Debbie. And son of Ron Hard, Jeff Hart. Good morning.
Good morning. I do have a genuine question, if time permits.
Yeah, okay, Jim. Let's get right to it. But now, folks, it's obvious that this indictment against the Southern Poverty Law Center by the U.S. Department of Justice is bringing a lot of attention, and folks on both sides are impassioned about it, and that's good. Now, the Southern Poverty Law Center, as an assistant United States attorney, I encountered them several times over the years. They started out in the late 1960s as a very noble organization providing lawyers to people who couldn't afford them, and to get access to primarily for Black people, to get access to integrated schools, access to restaurants where Blacks were discriminated against, access to housing where Blacks were discriminated against. And their beginnings were quite noble, as with many charitable organizations, though. Whether they've committed crimes or not, what they morphed into over the years was basically just a fundraising organization, lining their own bank accounts and pockets with sensationalized accusations and sometimes false accusations of racism. And that's been apparent whether they've committed crimes or not. And in my entire career, and I would have seen it as an assistant United States attorney, 40-year span, I never saw their lawyers or heard of their lawyers appearing anywhere, although they definitely appeared in the late 60s before I started practicing law. So, whether they've committed crimes or not, they're just another runaway charitable organization that's lost its original sense of purpose and is just lining their pockets. I bet the director makes, $5 million a year, that kind of thing. He's wearing it and driving it. And so, I don't know it, but I know it. All right, Jeb, you got a question?
Yeah, no. So after the went to the break there, I just couldn't help thinking this genuinely is a genuine question. And so if this is for Mr. York, and it is really true, and I hope I can get through it, because when the question was asked, like, why is Charlie Kirk a racist? I know it's not what we're talking about as part of this whole thing, but the thought process behind, I don't know, and I'm not going to go look back, yet it's been brought up a bunch of times, and it carries forward into other thinking. When you're presented with something that you can't justify, do you not feel internally as though it's important for you to go back and check yourself to justify how you feel and why you feel that way? Because if I just say I feel that way because I feel it, I feel like my 6-year-old son. Like, I just feel as though if you're pointed out with something that you don't know, the answer is not, I'm not checking, I just feel that way. And you're like, okay, why do you feel the way? I don't have an answer to it. And then to not care to look, but continue to feel the way, I don't understand where your head goes.
Yeah, I'm not going to go back and drum up stuff that Charlie Kirk said that was very negative and against. Bring it forward. Why should I keep repeating what he said that was very negative? I don't even want to mention his name. He created division amongst young people. He talked about Dr. King. He talked about affirmative action and stuff like that. He was wrong. And somebody, I don't know who did it, assassinated him. I'm not glad he was assassinated, but this is what something happened that I think Trump, he started talking about Epstein files and stuff. And I think Trump might have done it. I don't know.
I'm genuinely.
Let me, Jeb, on your statement. Jeb, on your
Jeb's turn, folks.
Jeb, on your statement where you say what Jim York says carries forward, right?
No,
that
what I mean by
that word
that
you
is-
said was carry forward. The same thing with something that we all respected early in the late 20th century, the Southern Poverty Law Center. When they say something, it's carried forward. So when they called Charlie Kirk a racist, then it sowed the seed that he was okay to be done away with by whomever out there. It was carried forward.
That's not thinking,
But
Debbie.
it is. They did this to I don't know how many people, Jim, for no reason
Well,
other than
the
politics.
real question would be that it's
When you
the
look
issue
at what a
of
person
of-
says, when you look at what a person says
Which you don't
and their
do, by the way.
actions, and you say that's racist.
Then
That
George, let it-
doesn't
then
give
at least
anybody the
under-
right to go
right, folks,
assassinate
it's my turn
anybody.
after
That's
Mr.
just the
York.
Hold on a
status
sec,
of
y'all.
what's happening.
It's
What
my
I'd
turn
like
after
to be-
Miss York finishes. Miss York, I challenge you right now to find me any video or recording of Charlie Kirk making a racist comment. And I'm going to give you a minute, but what's going on here is that Charlie Kirk was characterized by the Southern Poverty Law Center simply because he's conservative. And the Southern Poverty Law Center characterizes all conservatives as racist. And that's the nub of what's going on in America today. He wasn't racist, he was a conservative. Now, but they did that kind of thing to raise money, which they were paying themselves in salaries, expense accounts, cars, and all that kind of thing.
Yeah. And Del, too, I think the other case they could make against this 501c3 is that it really was a PAC, a DNC PAC, where you get deduction for donating to them, meaning they were doing the bidding of the Democrat Party. You look at Biden's speeches about, tiki torches and bulging necks in Charlottesville, which was a staged event.
Right.
This pretty much was going after the people that were Republicans against
We
Democrats.
understand.
I mean, it
Want the best for
morphed.
your child. The best.
All right,
What's that?
somebody's listening.
Morphed
to
into it morphed into a political organization, a PAC. There's another area they could probably. They got him for wire fraud. They got him for a bunch of different things, and clearly it's going to be. And a grand jury indicted. It wasn't just a case brought by the DOJ. Carte blanche. It was a grand jury. Whether they get them in Montgomery, Alabama, or not, I doubt. I don't know what the jurisdiction will be. That may be the problem in terms of courts. The jury getting them. But what
not
they've
the
done
goal.
is
It's not the goal.
Conservatives have been after Southern Poverty Law Center for years because they've pointed out discrimination. They've gone, like Delk said, they've gone to court for a lot of cases.
He said
And
they
the
haven't.
conservatives have been after the Southern Poverty Law Center, and with this group of hooligans in the DOJ, it's no telling what they'll do.
Well, this is
Mr.
the
York,
point being.
Mr. York, it's my turn. Mr. York, the Southern Poverty Law Center has clearly gone after conservatives as well, and they've become an arm of the Democratic Party. And in my career, 45, I know back in the late 60s, they litigated on the behalf of victims of racism, but I've not.
So what's
seen-
wrong with that? What's
Mr.
wrong
York,
with that?
Mr.
It's about
York,
the
I have not
evolution.
seen or heard of them doing that in the last 50 years.
Oh,
They're
come
just-
on. You don't listen to the news. There's
If
a
they're
lot of
based-
cases
if
that
they're
the
based
Southern
on
Poverty Law
news,
Center's
One at a
engaged
time,
in.
y'all.
No, they don't. And all
This-
they do is fundraise so they can wear it, drive it, spend it. For salaries, buying cars, what you have you. They're just like many charitable organizations that just after a while lose their sense of
Let's
original
not throw out
purpose
the always.
and run them up.
Yeah, throwing out the always can have the knees cut off of it because this is just an important reminder that institutions always do need to remain under scrutiny, because I think every single person here can agree that the root and the establishment and the early work of the Southern Poverty Law Center was moral, justified, and pointed in the right direction. But once you get to that much good, and then you have leadership turnover over decades, and then your reputation is so solid that you're beyond reproach. Once you start going off the road a little bit, anybody who says like, hey, I think we took a wrong turn back there, they're like, how dare you? How dare you? Do you know what I've done?
You know that didn't happen. Do you know that didn't happen? All organizations do things. I'm not saying Southern Poverty Law Center
What didn't happen?
has made a mistake,
What
but
didn't happen?
all organizations don't
Would you be
necessarily follow the
specific?
guidelines.
Let
What
me,
are we
It's just
What are
like
you
the
saying?
FBI.
What are
Okay.
you saying
Sure.
didn't happen?
Let me say.
Okay,
Let
Debbie,
me,
go ahead.
Let
Now,
me
Debbie,
say this.
I'm going to, Debbie,
Yes.
Debbie.
Yes.
Charlie Cook was murdered.
I'm not
Southern
talking about
Poverty-
that though, Jim.
I know that.
Okay.
Southern Poverty Law Center, put him on the racist watch list. But now it's to say that Southern Poverty Law Center causes murder. That's a stretch.
I'm not.
Go ahead,
I'm
Danny.
saying, if we all say words matter, then they matter. And
Yes.
I'm saying this, that I have great sadness that the Southern Poverty Law Center has turned into something that I used to, as you said, an admirable, noble thing. We all sort of said that allegations against them, maybe they weren't true because we held them in such esteem. So I have great sadness over this today. But at the same time, Charlottesville caused a division in this country and almost took down a president over it. And that this is a bigger deal with secondary and intended effects from these people by funding these fake things going through these cities. I mean, we
And
can't say
Debbie,
this is a
let me
one-off
tell you
thing.
something.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yes.
After Charlottesville and the Southern Poverty Law Center's actions there, their fundraising increased $80 million
Absolutely.
the next
Right.
year.
Here's a model. And if you look, I'm looking at their website right now. This is where they talk about cases they brought. Our cases smash remnants of Jim Crow. Of course, Jim Crow was 40s, 50s, 60s, and that range. So they're still talking about smashing remnants of Jim Crow. What have you done for me lately? They've run out of racists.
They got Jim Crow today.
They had what's Jim Crow today?
When Hexit fires the black generals,
Ladies
takes the
incompetent.
black generals off the list of promotion.
Any black general who gets fired is racist.
Is that what you're saying, Jim?
Is that what you
Can
say,
a black person be racist? That's a white issue.
Can a
Well,
black
so they
person
know
be
God.
fired?
You don't
And
even
an
Not what
understand
indoctrinated-
either
racial.
person said. Not
Can-
what either person said.
Well,
So
can
you
a
can't ever fire a black person in America because if you fire a black person, it's racist. Okay, I got you, Mr. York. That's the problem right there.
These people were working in the military for years. All
Yeah.
their peers said that they had the credentials. They
They're
were
making
put on a
stuff up.
promotion list, and that dumb Hexit just took them off.
Mr. York,
Like
After
the,
years of
Mr. York,
service,
hey,
after
hey,
years of service.
all right, let me tell you about generals, Mr. York. Now, once you get up to the rank of colonel in the Army, those are positions where you're supposed to be promoted based on merit. Once you become a general officer, you are subject to approval by the United States Senate. That is, at that point, you are political and you serve at the pleasure of the commander in chief, who's the president. And if your politics don't agree with the commander in chief, it doesn't matter how well qualified you are. The commander in chief under our system has every moral and legal right to fire you.
Yeah, he's got the right, but does that make sense?
Yes.
It
doesn't
Under
make
those
any sense.
circumstances,
It
what was the name of the
because
general
generals
fired,
are
Mr. York?
political.
What was the name of the general fired? You don't know.
I don't know that the
Yeah, of
chief,
course you don't know.
one
You
of the
just
chief of
because he's
staffs.
black
I
and
don't
fires
keep up with
black.
all those generals that Hexit fires.
Dude, you don't even
I
know
know
his
he
name.
fired the
All right, y'all, we gotta
Secretary
go
of the
to break.
Navy. We in the middle of a war.
You're
You
saying-
feel
Greg.
strongly
All right,
enough
Greg, you
about
get
it.
the signal. We're
That's
out
okay.
of here, folks. We'll see you Monday.
No,
night.
wait,
Well,
we
no,
gotta-
No.
We
We're
gotta
just going to
Last
break.
break.
We're just going to break.
Last break.
Hold up.
Oh, last break. Okay,
Yeah,
sorry,
we're just going to
sorry.
break.
I'm gonna take the
Last break.
dementia
All right.
pill.
All right, Grace, give me the signal. We are back. 3 Dudes with a View. My name is Del Kennedy. I'm dude number 3. Debbie Matthews is rocking out over there. Regular special guest dude, Debbie Matthews. Good morning.
Good morning, and I do have an article, just a snippet to read when we get back. So
Okay, we'll get right to
Okay.
it. All right, dude number 2, native son, favorite son of Columbia, Ron Hart. Good morning.
Good morning.
Dude number 1, Mr. Jim York. Good morning.
Good morning, Dale. I got some of your Charlie Kirk's comments for you.
Okay, all right, we'll get to Debbie and then to you.
Okay.
Son of Ron Hart, Jeff Hart. Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, I would love my question of Mr. York that I asked earlier from an internal way, not external. I was talking about the rationality behind the thought process was all.
All right, I did not anticipate the level of engagement this indictment of the Southern Poverty Law Center would occur. But so before we get to comments, I'm
Okay,
going to turn it over to y'all.
Okay,
But let me lay the framework for what's happened. The Southern Poverty Law Center was indicted by the U.S. Department of Justice on mail fraud and wire fraud charges. The fraud alleged is that they are a charitable organization chartered to litigate against or to combat racism in the United States. And so they're entitled to raise money as a charitable organization to do that. But they have to raise money for the purposes for which they were chartered. The allegation is that they paid money to the KKK and others, presumably to promote racism and thereby increase their fundraising. Well, that is mail fraud and wire fraud, in that they falsely represented to charitable donors what their money would be used for. And that's a crime. All right, Debbie, you're
Okay,
first.
so the Heritage Foundation wrote an article on April 25th of 2023. So this was during the Biden administration, okay? And the Heritage Foundation's title of it says, "Conservatives wrongly demonized as hate groups may get justice at last." Okay, so this investigation has been going on a long time. In this article, it says their endowment number had hit $780 million at that time, is what they had cash on hand, okay, which was a lot of money. But there is a paragraph in here that says, and talks about, it says, in one terrifying instance, an SPLC accusation inspired a terrorist attack. A gunman targeted the Family Research Council in Washington, D.C. in 2012, planning to kill everyone in the building, and he told the FBI he targeted the council because he found it on the Southern Poverty Law Center's hate map. He's now serving 25 years in prison after pleading guilty to terrorism. And while the Southern Poverty Law Center condemned the act, it kept the council on its hate map. Okay? So they've had a hate map of people all over the place. So if you differ at all in their ideology, you're put on this map, which has caused numerous attacks. Not just
It definitely there's evidence there that it caused that attack.
Absolutely. But when you
There we go.
call somebody a racist, like they did, and again, I'm using Charlie Kirk as an example because it could be Catholics, it could be parents at town hall meetings, whatever it is. But the Southern Poverty Law Center had such a reputation that when they said it, people believed it. And so it gave some nut out there basically the approval, this guy's a bad guy, so he can be done away with. And the public, 50% of them, when someone dies, they're okay with it because, oh, he was a racist, supposedly.
Okay, Debbie, good point. All right, Miss York, go.
Well, all that stuff y'all talking about the Southern Poverty Law Center hasn't been proven in a court of law. It's allegations. So let me go with Charlie Kirk.
Miss York,
You said
Debbie
you
just-
wanted to
Miss
hear.
York,
You
hang on, Debbie just gave us one that had been proved in a court of law.
one.
Okay.
You didn't listen.
Y'all got nuts running all over this country, and she pointed out one person that did something to an organization that was titled racist. But let's
Okay,
go with Charlie
okay.
Kirk.
Okay.
First thing,
Let him go.
he talked
Miss
about
York's
the
turn,
black
folks.
in January 24. He talked about the black pilots. He didn't think they were qualified if he got on a plane.
what is the
That-
exact?
that's
No,
all he said.
nothing.
Stop.
Listen to what I got
No.
to say. No,
You're
you
lying.
stop.
You're lying,
Hold
Mr.
on a
York.
sec-
You're
If
hold
lying.
on,
I
Mr.
hold
see,
York.
on.
this is his quote. If
give me
I
a
see a
quote.
black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified.
Me too.
Kirk said this in January
too.
2023
You know
and
why.
Me too.
2024.
You know why, Mr. York? Mr. York, do you know
If you're
why?
a
One at
WNBA
a time.
pot smoking black lesbian, do you get treated better than a United States Marine? He said that in December 2022. happening all the time. Urban America, prowling blacks,
Quiet for
One
one
at a
second.
time.
You know why he
One at a
said that?
time.
Because
happening all the time in urban America. Prowling blacks
you're not
go around for fun to go target white people. That's a fact. It's happening more and more. He said that in May of 2023. Now, I'm not going to read the rest of the crap he said, and that's why I view him as a
You
racist.
saw the whole thing. If you get on an airplane and you see a black pilot under the years of affirmative action and DEI, you know damn well that they're, and some of them, not all of them, which is a sad thing for the ones that qualify naturally. But under DEI and affirmative action, they did not make the grades.
That was his entire point.
Clarence Thomas, is Clarence Thomas a DEI? He
Wow.
was a product of affirmative
Yale.
action.
That was pre
He went to Yale.
DEI. That was
He's a product of affirmative action.
You're missing the entire point. Again, this is the entire narrative that starts to get driven because the pilot thing is part of a significantly larger conversation because he was saying that it was wildly unfair that was the thought, but because of the priorities in hiring, the lowering in standards, that thought comes in.
That's
because
bull.
that was
No
actively the
standards are
case.
lowered when affirmative
wait.
action was implemented.
Mathematically,
kidding?
they have to be.
Stop.
You read the
Right,
Texas
that's
case.
it.
All right,
read
y'all,
the
hold on.
Michigan case.
Y'all-
Cut their mics off. Folks,
I mean-
this is a worthwhile debate. Y'all are doing a great job of it. But nobody can understand what we're saying if you don't have the courtesy to let the other person have their return.
All right.
So let's do it one at a time. All right.
We on the radio, Del. We don't need a 35-minute dissertation. We on the radio.
Will you dominate the conversation? Can I speak for a second? You look at the Michigan affirmative action case on SAT scores and admission scores. You look at the Texas case, Mr. York. Blacks got in these schools with 20 to 25% discount on their standardized testing. 20 to 25. Same thing goes for law schools. Same thing goes for med school. So if you got a pilot, where your life's in danger, and these airlines are trying their best to promote blacks, which is a noble cause. No one doubts that. But how deep do they discount the test scores to get them in there? Same thing with medical doctors. You wonder sometimes that did they make the same scores as the Asian kid or the white kid? And the answer is no. In mass, the answer is no.
Why would you wonder that, Ron?
Okay.
I mean,
One
if you
at a time.
don't have racist
Whoa.
tendencies,
Mr. York
Math.
is trying to reply.
Because I understand math.
Mr. York, what do you say?
I'm saying, why would you think somebody that's different from you is less qualified in a profession unless you have
You're not listening.
racist
You're not listening.
tendencies?
Whoa, it's
May I
Jeff's
please
turn
hear-
to talk, folks.
May I please here? See, that's the flaw in the logic, is that your assumption is that because there's a quota based on race, it has any criticism of it has to be based off of the fact that you don't like the person who is inquired in the quota. But if you're talking about pilots, for example, well, let's take something. Let's take this out of it. Let's take race out of it. Let's take gender. If General Electric was required to hire exactly 50% women and 50% men in engineering positions, mathematically there are significantly more men in STEM fields, so the pool is larger. So mathematically there are more to choose from. So the ones that take the job are mathematically higher up an arc of their field. If it is smaller and you still have to equalize them, you are picking lower down the list of the most qualified people because you yourself have set up a category by which you are confined to choose. It has nothing to do with race. It is about sticking a category upon which you have to fill regardless.
Okay, Jim.
In this capital system,
Mr. York.
in this
Exact opposite.
capitalistic system,
Exact opposite.
companies
exact
are not
opposite.
going to pick ill-qualified people to run their companies.
Wrong.
By all metrics,
Wrong.
the Caucasian male leads in CEOs in this country. They lead in business and investment operations. They are in every metric in this country in a majority. And when you see a minority in a position, it doesn't call for saying, are they qualified?
No one
Did
said
they-
that about
did
Bob
they-
Johnson.
Did they
No one
make the
said
right
that.
test
Hold on.
scores?
No one said that about Bob Johnson. No one
Debbie's
said
turn.
that.
Debbie's turn.
Is it my turn?
Yes.
You know, the thing is, maybe on applications, there just should be an identifying number and that nobody knows what race someone is and someone's not. Period.
What y'all talking
Or
about,
gender.
college or what?
I'm talking about all the way down. And let the best person win all the way down.
Mr.
Maybe
York,
that's
one other
what we're gonna have
question.
to do.
If tomorrow the NBA said
Wait a minute,
that
Debbie's
Well,
Okay, you done,
Debbie?
Debbie?
well, I think Ron's about to hit on it.
Okay,
I mean,
Ron's
if-
turn then.
okay.
All right.
Okay,
You yield
Mr.
Ron.
York, if the NBA said tomorrow that it had to be 60% white, 62% white, 2% Jewish, 4% Asian, and you saw a basketball player out there that was white, wouldn't you kind of think maybe he wouldn't be in the NBA if it weren't for affirmative action?
You had a company that sold to
No, you didn't answer the question.
I'm going to answer your question. If you had a company and you just sold to Caucasians and you had 1,000,000 minorities out there, would you want to employ a minority to
there's
put in
not-
your company?
There's not a white defensive back in the NFL. I don't think, maybe one right now. Do you think we should
Sehorn
have
and
62% of
Cooper
defensive? Do you think
DeJean.
62% of defensive backs in the NFL should be white?
Can they play? Can they defend?
Apparently
Only
not,
have
because
one.
these
And
people
only
want to
one
win. They
thing
want
is
the
the
best
best.
people on
Sehorn
the
has been
field.
able to play. Cooper DeJean has been the only one who his merit has qualified him to do so. And there's not a single complaint. But again, the flaw in the logic as to how you get to this opinion is based off of the assumption you know the reason why the other side is upset about it. By the very definition of anything, take race, gender, anything out of it. If you limit the pool from which you're selecting ahead of time, you're selecting from less things, which means the opportunity to get better things is less. It is a self-confining version of your own choices. Take everything else out of it. That's just math. And I know there's an allergy to averages, but it's just how math works.
One other small thing, Mr. York, if like you said, the general's fired because he's black. If you're a corporation and you're stretched to hire a black person, then knowing down the road, if you fire them, they're going to say race, or a woman is going to say gender. You're reluctant to hire them. You're hurting your own case because everybody's sensitive to that. So you really do hurt yourself by having this attitude.
Well, when you look at a person in a high position, the first thing you see if he's different from you is his race. What does that tell you as a person?
Nobody said
I don't think
that.
that
What does that tell you as a person?
Nobody
I
said
guarantee
that.
Tells you
I
that
saw
you
a black-
have priorities for race, and that's wrong.
If I saw a black doctor
Well-
in the 60s, I would know he probably was above and beyond to become a doctor. I would in the 60s and 70s, I would think the black doctor became a doctor would be very admirable. But in the 90s, 2000s, once affirmative action hits, look at the case in Texas, look at the case in Michigan, 20% discount test scores, 25% discount test scores.
Test scores do not determine how a person makes.
Okay.
Your
All
right,
test
all right.
scores wasn't
The
great in
part
high
where
school.
they figure
Okay,
out what
let's
you
take a break,
know.
man.
Delk, I have a-
folks. Whoa.
I have a-
Remember, what we're talking about here is whether or not the Southern Poverty Law Center rightfully or wrongly accused Charlie Kirk of racism because of his remarks that appear to be about affirmative action and whether or not that brought the best qualified people to the pilot seat, et cetera. All right, Jeb, you had your hand up.
I mean, there's multiple parties to it, and Debbie can follow up here. But again, it's just a math of averages and jumping to it. Like you're saying that, no one has ever accused Bob Johnson of being a affirmative action hire. If you're familiar with who he is, he's a profoundly successful man of his own right. But once you actively campaign on the idea that we are going to hire more and then talk about things like math is being racist, so we're going to change that. And these are, again, not hypotheticals. We're talking about the reason that built this sort of thing. You're like, okay, we're not doing standardized tests. A bunch of Ivy League colleges, as part of the 2020 wokeness drop-off, stopped doing that. The fail-out rate was massive because they stopped doing the one thing that you're supposed to do to find out if somebody knows something is test them as to whether or not they know it. Because that sometimes can be the point. It's not the end-all, know-all. I can barely read. I'm dyslexic. So it's not the end-all, be-all of intelligence. The world is a cosm, but if you have a standard and then you drop it arbitrarily based on something, when in reality, if you want to talk about economics versus where you grew up, how you are, they have much more actual effects.
All right. Well,
Bob Johnson have a diverse workforce in his company?
At Black Entertainment Television, yes, I do believe.
Yeah,
he-
pretty-
Okay, so he had no problem in hiring Caucasians and Asians and people of Indian descent. He had no problem doing that, did
Yeah,
he?
and he was
He
never
was a
forced
client. He's a
to.
client of mine. He had a white CFO and a white CEO. But yeah, he had at the
So-
BT.
So I wonder if they were qualified. I
Can I
wonder if they
finish?
were qualified.
Can I finish?
Well, all right, folks, and I'm going to talk here.
Well, they qualified to do BT.
What's turning the whole thing on its head, though, is that in situations where Asians are applying to universities, where Asians are applying for jobs, white people are being passed over because the Asians score higher, are better qualified, have more discipline, and work harder. And as a group, and so white folks are suing, saying they're being discriminated against. And they're organizing to have affirmative action on behalf of white people, as they have
What
in
lawsuit is that? Because I don't.
I think you got a little bit complicated. I think
Asians
Asians
are
sued
suing.
Harvard because
Yeah.
their
Asians
test scores
sued
were
Harvard.
higher than white and blacks that they admitted. So that was the other way around.
Well,
90% of the
in school
CEOs are
districts in Northern
Caucasian,
Virginia,
Del.
in school districts in Northern Virginia, predominantly white school boards got together to lower the number of Asians that were getting into the magnet schools. So yeah, it's happening.
Yeah.
So why is egalitarianism only required within seats of power or things that we deem to be quit? Do we have to have, an equal representation in all aspects of life across the board? I mean, CEOs being that direction, fine. What percentage of nurses are men? What, bricklayers or roofers are women? What are we doing? If egalitarianism is there, we should not, if that's the root cause of the argument, then it should be put everywhere, not just the ones that you can see and point out.
And
Ron.
if capitalists are greedy and they want to make the most money, they're going to want to put the best person in the job. So you can't have it both ways. Capitalists can't be greedy pigs and terrible people and also racist.
NASA did. How do you view Glover, Ron? Is he affirmative action pick?
Are you talking about
Glover,
the Artemis
who's that?
guy?
All right. I've got a question, Ron.
What?
Ron, what if those worthy folks turn out to be all Asian or 90% Asian?
You try to get diversity, try to bring people in the field. The reason it's so stark with airplane pilots and doctors is your life's at risk. That's the difference. I don't care if you have a gender studies professor at Brown that's black or white.
To answer,
How many minority plane crashes have happened?
One minute, folks.
I want to say with Ron, as a woman, I have a problem with affirmative action when it comes to women being, and I'm not saying this is everybody, but the fire chiefs or police chiefs.
Debbie, we're at the end of the show. Debbie,
30 seconds.
I apologize to everybody. Every time we talk all over each other, Clayton and I get our inboxes full of people who are just saying, I'm turning it off because I can't understand anything y'all are talking about. We had a great show, a great debate, but if we want to get our message out, no matter what it may be, we've got to not talk over each other. See you Monday, folks.
We got to cut them messages down, though, Del. We can't take 20 minutes to describe a point.